Manufacturing is very exciting.
Producing a product just gives you a sense of value.
It's challenging.
I've always enjoyed solving problems and working on different projects.
I'm a very hands-on person. I'm a very technical person.
I'm good at what I do. So over here, they get to see that.
I get to go in the shop, put my hands on a product, and I get to interact with those people.
You can see the final product at the end of the day and feel good about what you did to contribute to it.
I had the opportunity to get in on the ground floor, so there's nowhere to go but up.
You can always move up. There's always room for advancement.
What I like best is problem solving and interacting with our customers.
The people here, some of the best people you ever want to work with.
I think I like people the best. They're who I work with.
Yeah, of course the pay, the hours.
I like the schedule the best. You're here, but then you got a lot of time off to do what you want to do.
I mean, this can be a life now. Now you got a plan. I mean, you can actually stay somewhere for a while.
Great benefits, good pay.
A good living. I receive health, medical benefits, and it's rewarding.
We're affecting people's lives, you know, and that's what's good about it.
Taking that idea and turning it into a reality.
I get to see a product come in the back door as raw product, as nothing. And I get to see a finished, custom designed small power transformer laid in the driveway.
You know, every time I see a truck driving or an airplane landing, I feel like, you know, indirectly I am a part of that.
You know, our jets and spacecraft, like we're possibly making material for that as well. And so you've got a small part in that much bigger picture.
It's a pretty cool process to see the entire way from start to finish.
Finally, the product looks good. That's what my goal is.
One of the major benefits you get in working in manufacturing is you learn skills. You learn many skills that you can take out and use in your day-to-day life.
I've done a little bit of everything. As far as manufacturing, it's a skill that you could take with you in other positions.
I think there's a lot of growth.
I can pretty much, you know, excel in any direction that I want to using my degree. So this is great.
We have people in our upper levels of management here in our plant that started out building tires.
It's more than just a factory job.
We're looking for people who have a strong work ethic, who enjoy the fast-paced environment.
We look for people who are team players and have an open mind.
Somebody that's capable of understanding complex functions.
Their attitude and their thought process.
We also look for someone who has a technical background that can apply that here.
Not only do you have to be highly literate, you also have to be able to have some basic computer skills.
The challenge is, I don't think the manufacturing environment have the reputation it really deserves.
Manufacturing is more than just, you know, standing behind a machine cranking out a bunch of parts.
From a career standpoint, manufacturing offers a broad range of opportunity.
It's more, say, than just a job, and it is a good living.
Manufacturing can provide a good career with opportunity for advancement and a sense of fulfillment and a good livelihood.
With the skill level increasing here in the South Side and technology advancements, I can see our production producing double what it is now today versus 5 years from now.
I see a strong growth platform for us, and it's important that we continue to provide the training and development of individuals so that we can best serve our customers.
I see technology continuing to play a bigger role.
You will have to have a little bit different skill set coming into the manufacturing industry.
You know, the changes that I've seen in the last 10 years, if they continue at that pace for the next 10 years, I would anticipate needing people who have even higher levels of education.
Stay in school, go to a community college, maybe get a technical degree.
I really see that we still have an opportunity to grow a lot.
This facility has given me many opportunities to grow.
I see myself moving up, you know, further into this business.
I could see me moving up into a higher level management position.
Only time will tell, you know, the possibilities are endless.
Just give it a chance. That's all I can say.
I make the world energized.
I make planes strong.
I make you smile with pride.
I make the trip smoother.
Welcome to Patrick Henry Community College. We're delighted to have you on our campus. And we're so excited to have the Rural Center here tonight and all of the many, many partners. I thought it was very impressive just to look at the flyer, and it really tells you that it's a great day in Southern Virginia when so many partners on one sheet of paper really trying to move the needle for our community. And we're very, very fortunate, very honored that Glenn Sink chose to come to our community and really set us on for a challenge. This is a call to action, isn't it, Glenn? And we appreciate that you chose this spot. So we welcome you here to our campus. So we do think we have the most beautiful campus in the community college system. It's a beautiful place, and we're delighted to have you here tonight. So Glenn, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this endeavor, and really thank you for giving us a chance to be a part of this conversation here tonight. So let's welcome Glenn to our community.
Thank you, Dr. Godwin. It's my honor to be here with you all tonight, and as I told Dr. Godwin when we came in, I'm a Franklin County native. Grew up on 220 right south of Boone's Mill, and so for a young man from Franklin County, Delegate Pondexter, to come to Martinsville and speak, that's an honor, and especially to be on a program with Senator Wampler and Dr. Godwin. I'm impressed with myself, so appreciate it. It is a joy to come and spend a few moments covering what some real needs of rural are, where we've come from, and the opportunities that we have going forward. 2 or 3 recognitions as I get started that I would make. First of all, the Rural Center is an organization of both state and federal connections, and we've been in existence a few years now. Senator Frank Ruff is with us tonight, and appreciate Frank always coming. Have been a tremendous support. He's been the founding chairman and the leader of bringing the Rural Center to fruition, if you will, and getting it to where it is today, representing the rural areas of the Commonwealth. 80% of the land mass, 20% of the population, some real opportunities. We also, as we are a conduit and an advocate for rural policy and rural programs, the Rural Center facilitates and works with the Rural Caucus. The legislators, some 66 of them in the General Assembly that line up and study and work together. And we've got Delegate Marshall and Delegate Pondexter with us tonight. We appreciate you all being here and have been big advocates, and during the legislative session, they meet weekly, and Senator Wampler was involved with us for a long time, but finance kind of takes our legislators away from weekly meetings, and so from time to time I would miss the senator being with us, but it has been an excellent experience for an opportunity for the work that you all are doing. Locally, we've been coming with the Rural Center to Southside and meeting with different groups down here now for a number of years. And early on, it would be one group and then another group, and we'd meet in Martinsville and we'd meet in Danville and we'd go up to Franklin County. And to have this group here together tonight is a milestone, and I compliment you all for it. You're making tremendous progress in what the rest of the world sees as a need, and that is organizations working together to achieve goals and objectives, and a strong PDC like you all have with Aaron Burdick leading it as a young mind, and Aaron is connected to other PDCs around the state and nation. It's just a tremendous opportunity, and you need to be proud of where you are and what you're doing, and the fact that you've got school superintendents, you got the community college, you got NCI. All these programs have come to the front, and the leadership and the boards behind them are working together and talking about common interest. And hopefully as I go through the presentation, you will see where that is truly important to your success here in Southside. And the natural resources are here. We've just got to harness them and put together. We look at, and I'm always talking about what's involved in rural work in Virginia. We have basically 5 rural regions, and we have the Golden Crescent. And I talk about the 80% and the 20%, and we can go through a lot of the activities around those. But you know, the 5 rural regions are distinctly different. When you look at Southside, you have assets, you have programs, you have funding streams, you have a lot of things that none of the other regions have. You have a history and a past. You go to Southwest Virginia, and they're totally different. You go to Eastern Shore and the Waterman, and they don't have some of the benefits and programs that you do, and then you get in the Valley and Region 2000, and because of their background, their heritage, and their history, they're different. And so I show you that to, number one, exhibit the fact that no one community or no one region has a lock on the old state. The other is that in Virginia, and we've spent the last few months working at our national program and the national level, visiting a number of entities around the country, and everybody looks back and says to me, says, Glenn, does the rural people in Virginia realize the golden goose that they have in the Golden Crescent? And I said, well, you know, we look at it most days as a challenge because they have the votes and they have the economy and they run a lot of things, but they say, you know, we always dream of being close to the market. We always dream of being close to health and education and all those type of programs that we know evolve and develop around the cities. And for those of you that, and they were talking to me, they said, you know, all you need to do is go to the cities in in Virginia, and bring the kids back to rural, or let them know what's going on. And I said, you know, you must be talking to me, because I've been in the city a bigger part of my work life, and my parents are always saying, you know, you don't understand what it is like in Franklin County anymore. So I say to you, that's an opportunity, and that's how we're looked at. What's the rural agenda that we're working with? And I want to visit with you now for a few brief moments at a 30,000-foot level that's very, very important to here in Southside. There are basically, come on, baby, sit still. There are basically 6 economic essentials, or 6 real issues that are important in impacting rural Virginia, rural America, or Southside. Our number one priority issue is workforce training, is education. And that's where, when you're working among yourselves and with each other, dealing with limited resources, when you're working with legislators, when you have when you have gubernatorial candidates come and talk to you, it is really important that you always talk about education, and we want to expand on that further. Second to that is jobs, the economy it's called, and then third is health. And those 3 tie together. Now, our board has debated this at length. You know, if you don't have good community capacity, if you don't have leaders, if over the last 25 years, the top 20% of the students in Southside Virginia went to town, you're left with the rest to run the town with. And that's not being negative or derogatory to the rest. They do the best they can. But, you know, I grew up in the dairy business. We're still in the dairy business. And, boy, you hang on to those top cows at any cost, because that's your future blood stock. That's your seed corn, as I've heard the senator say so many times. And so community capacity could be the top or it could be the bottom. You talk about infrastructure. And then agriculture. And up to 25, 30 years ago, agriculture, natural resources was Virginia's primary economic driver, but with the coming of technology, that has changed. What are the issues that we're dealing with? And I'm promoting tonight, the Rural Center is promoting, and we want to leave you thinking about it. And what I want to do is give you some things to think about, give you some numbers, and have you come back and start asking questions among yourself and with us. Education and workforce skills. Those are your primary challenges. To jobs, it's not unemployment. It's education, workforce skills, and health. There needs to be an educated pipeline from the little one all the way through the system. And you need to think about that pipeline. And I love the video. And those people were kind of quietly talking about a pipeline. They were young people in tech positions that had certain skills, and they were beginning to think about management at own. And that's a process of continuing to go up and through the pipeline. In order to have a good pipeline, you got to have a system. Virginia's government structures and systems has reached a point to where it creates challenges for rural areas, unpopulated areas, sparsely populated areas. Did I say that diplomatic enough, Senator Wampler? Just leave it at that. So our challenge going forward is for rural people to talk about the systems that strengthens our programs, and they're different than what a highly populated area might need. The last is funding priorities, and I can talk about that a lot of ways. Adequate funding, we all talk about funding. Matter of fact, sometimes we put too much emphasis on, but without funding, you don't move forward, you don't get anywhere. But we are in a phase and a time where tax base for rural economies, funding streams from government, the economies of rural areas, which has changed on us in the last decade or so, is not as strong in what it used to be. So we're having to deal with less. And an exciting thing about this room full of people and you all working together you will make better use of the limited funds you have than each of you trying to run your own program by yourself. Now, we used to could do that. But I can go back to that list of issues, and that's not going to be something we can do going forward. What are the realities? Well, the economy's changing. We've had a recession. We've seen new innovations come forward. Technology has changed the way all young people think and operate. And with those, rural areas has probably been impacted the greatest, and the gap between the economic gap and the social gap between rural and urban suburban is getting greater. And we're looking for ways to turn that around. We're in a global market and globalization, and a number of those companies that were depicted on the presentation, the slides, they are global companies that's producing for global, and they're right here with us, and we've got to understand it. Our demographics is changing. The workplace is changing, and for some of us that creates real challenges. The talent bar is rising. I'll touch that just a little bit later, but the needs for talent, the kind of talent that's needed, keeps on going up. And as the study pointed out, and I'm using Southern Growth Policies Board State of the South study and report that'll be published here in about mid-July, I'm told. It's a study we in Virginia were part of, and we have used a lot of the numbers there. They studied the 13 southern states. They labeled behind the curtain as one of the challenges that rural areas have. When we think of health problems and substance abuse problems, we think of urban centers, urban Virginia. That's who you normally name. We have labor forces and labor markets being highly impacted because we don't have a healthy labor force. We don't have a labor force that controls and manages their own health, and as a result, in today's advanced manufacturing, advanced technology, global sales, you've got to have a workforce that deals with their health and companies that deal with health. That's a behind the curtain, an elephant in the room issue that is hard for us to talk about. But Rural Center has been addressing that and looking at it. Life cycle. life cycle of education, life cycle of companies, life cycle of jobs are getting shorter and shorter. You get an advanced education in technology today, and within less than 10 years, you need to be back in retraining. So we're talking about retraining and retraining and retraining. Today, return on investment. Now, every businessman in here works on return on investment. For the first time ever in the studies that I've seen, whether they're by Harvard or Kellogg or the Jefferson Institute or the Southern Growth Policies Board or JLARC, they're all talking about the return on an investment in education. You know, we get an education to get a job, to make an income, not to get an education. And today's parents, and in urban Virginia, and the circles that I deal in with kids going off to college today are talking about, you know, how long can I pay it back? What's that youngster going to do until it's paid back? How are they going to work and make it pay? And so return on investment out of education investment. And one of the beauty parts and things that we like about the New College Institute is they're broad-based, they're partnering with other institutions, they're using electronic services in their education program, and that's a way to get a good return on investment in what you're producing, a broad base of young people, and that's for outcome. What are success factors in education? Well, you know, we all stop and think, and at surface level, we know we got to have strategic system in our education programs. We got to have a right structure. We got to have good schools and infrastructure. Got to have excellent teachers. Excellent teachers. Just can't be great enough. We got to have good practices in our school. We got to utilize technology. I think I'm bouncing this thing with my. Come on. And you put all these things together, and I ask you, do you have childhood education? Do you have an education system that produces success? What elements are you missing in that process? And that's one that needs to be studied and looked at, and it's a difficult one for legislators to address. Need employer engagement. The business community hires the product of the education community. They are a buyer. They need to be involved in the quality control, in the planning for development and production, in how it's executed and carried out, especially in today's world. Now, when I was a youngster home on the farm and Dad thought I was going to come back and farm and he was the teacher, he handled that every day. And if I didn't plow the corn row right, I got reprimanded. And he was the hirer of the labor that he thought I was going to be. And so that process and thought process, and that was just a few years back. Do we have that in our education system today? And it takes the employer becoming involved in the development system, both K through 12 and beyond. We got to up our graduates. We've got to train and upgrade our skills. We've got to identify the talent that's needed. And one of the studies we spent a lot of time studying and evaluating at the Rural Center was the Tobacco Commission's Boston Consulting Group study. And they talked about identifying talents and the need to do that was needed. And we specifically train and educate around that on the information support system to work with it, and on a guidance system in schools to make sure that children were made aware, the public was made aware of what was needed. Now, I've tried, and I'm in making a PowerPoint slide, I have a hard time creating, I wanted to create a pipeline. Let's think about education in the format of a pipeline. Gas pipeline, and you draw out of it from time to time, or Larry Jackson with AEP, his electrical line, and he draws out down the line. We're in the world today in education where we draw the resource that's produced in education out of that pipeline. And there needs to be a thought process and a system for pre-K through 8, and then high school and guidance and making the youngsters aware of the jobs and the opportunity, and then move into community colleges. And we hear, when I work with the presidents of community colleges, and now it's backed up, and if there's any school superintendents here about high school, they're always lamenting the fact that we do major investment in remediation. There's a new term now, rather than it's something development in the community college. But a high percent of high school students are remediated or have to catch up in order to go to community college or go to college. That's an expense to the education system. And if we can create a system to minimize and make a decline in the amount that we do in remediation, we will improve the output and control our cost. And that requires identification, that requires data systems, that requires talking about what's going on. Our workforce board's in the middle of that, and Kim and the group here have done a great job with the workforce board, the higher education center, private industries becoming deeply involved, and again, the Tobacco Commission through CCAM in industry education, our colleges and our universities. Let's look at set of numbers that I want you to take away from here and think about it. Today's workforce skills, 20% of the jobs today, and it's less than 20%, but for discussion, requires a high school education. 51% of the jobs today in Virginia, and I'd say here in Southside, require something in training and educating greater than a high school, but less than a bachelor's degree. That's a big majority. Credentials, certificates, license, associate degrees. You just think about how many people up and down the street working in healthcare, working in manufacturing, working in information technology, working in the energy world, have an education and training that is somewhere between a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree. 29% of today's population need a bachelor's degree or higher. Now, we are training more than that. There are two problems with our training system there. Because of lack of information, or I always wanted to get a degree in, and I won't say what because I'll offend somebody, say agriculture. That's what I got a degree in. But there isn't a job in agriculture this year. So what do? I step down and take a job that only needed an associate's degree or a license or wherever, which I took away from somebody who didn't have a bachelor's degree, because I could promote my bachelor's degree and look good. And then that person stepped down and took a job away from a youngster that had just a high school diploma. And then all of a sudden we've got a town with high unemployment, and the health problems that go with that and the challenges that come around it. So this thing of developing a system that makes us look at the pipeline from high school through advanced training is just super important to the success. Return on investment in education, for us going forward, it is the number one issue for rural areas. We've got to look for ways to save money, to spend our money wisely, to improve and facilitate our systems such that they are used to help not only the K through 12 or the community colleges, but the retraining that's needed and the people, as all these youngsters talked about, going into management. If you're 40-year-old and wants to go into management, you've got to have more education and training. So that investment, and it's all outcome-based. Rural policy for the Commonwealth is to build bridges to regional capacity development. Coordination and flexibility is going to be required to do that out of all of us. And the action that I'm encouraging you all to do is to become engaged this year in the political process, to tell the statewide candidates the needs for education in rural, the needs for workforce training in rural, to support the work of the Tobacco Commission and others as they develop it, and Lastly, we're having a major conference that brings all of this information together. It's called the Rural Summit that has been going on September 23rd and 24th. It's going to be on North Richmond, and it will be a great opportunity for you to hear the professionals at the Southern Growth Policies Board and for Rural Policy Research Institute and all of those different groups to talk about what rural areas truly need in education and workforce and how important that is to the success of rural Virginia and to the Commonwealth totally. And it will be on the list going forward. And with that, I appreciate again the opportunity to come and visit with you. I applaud you guys for the great work that you're doing and the coordination and programs that you have of working together, and I look forward to continuing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Gowen.
This is a great crowd and a chance for us to really share some visioning with you and actually where we're beyond the planning stage of really trying to take some of these issues that Glenn's laid out here for thought-provoking and kind of tell you where we're at. But I'd like to introduce to you someone that needs no introduction in our community, Senator William Wampler. When William came to visit with me for the first time, we only had about 6 months difference in our arrival in this area to be a part of this community. In our first meeting together, William said to me, "We're going to agree to agree." And we have held to that mantra very, very closely as we look at ways in which we set aside really a narrow agenda and we'll look at what is in the best interest of our community. As a community college, we ask ourselves every morning, what is in the best interest of the students? And I think it's important for us, and this is what this discussion of rural Virginia is all about, what is in the best interest of our communities. And so I'd like to ask Senator Wampler to come forward, and he may have some recognitions and kind of give you an overview of where we're at and what we're looking at as an example of delivering on these expectations and really the challenge that the Virginia Rural Center has set before us.
Good evening to everyone. See if anybody's awake. And Glenn, I've got to say that when your PowerPoint was accelerating and you went to the conclusion, I was about ready to stand and applaud and say it's the quickest presentation I've ever heard you give. But we thank you for coming tonight, and we thank you for all of the work that you have done over the so many years for the Rural Center. And I can tell you, as a former member of the General Assembly for 24 years, when the center did not exist and when we created it, and I have to think, Frank, you probably created it under your watch with the House concurring, thank you very much, that we were able to put together an organization that was at times able to match the arm wrestling with Northern Virginia. And as a former member, I can tell you that the county of Fairfax alone, at any point in time, could blow the whistle and have more members of the General Assembly than all of Southside and all of Southwest could muster on a given Monday, Tuesday through Friday whenever we adjourned sine die. So it was important for rural legislators to get together. But the center really, it doesn't matter about so much what the numbers are. If you have the facts and the data and the research behind you, you are able to provide a prevailing case many times. So Glenn, we thank you for all of your service, and Dr. Godwin and I are now trying to plow the ground that you have tilled for us and hope that plants will come from it. So here I'm going to pick on somebody in the audience, Julie. And Julie, I see you right there. So we were very fortunate to have the video at the beginning. So Julie, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm going to give you 90 seconds to tell us about your organization and your inspirational video, because if Senator Wampler would say Dr. Julie Brown and the Dan River Regional Collaborative did all this, I wouldn't have any relevance. But tell us just a second about what you put together and what it means for this region.
Thank you very much for putting on the spot. So I'm with the Dan River Regional Collaborative. We work from Hatcher County to Halifax. we are a sector strategy approach, so I convene employers in 4 areas: energy, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and information technology. And so part of the conversation with our manufacturers has been they are concerned about pipeline development, where are their future workers coming from. And so we wanted to put together something that really featured 4 companies in our region, and you saw those at the end of the video. And so all those folks that you saw work in companies within our region. We wanted them to plug. Hopefully you saw a lot of diversity there. Hopefully you saw a younger voice saying why they like working in manufacturing. Hopefully you heard the theme that there's opportunity for growth and advancement. So we're trying to get that message out to young people because there is genuine concern about where is that workforce coming from out of the K-12 system. So thank you very much. We're trying to really help our employers be successful, but ultimately we're trying to help our low-wage, low-skilled workers understand the need and the opportunity to advance. I want to thank Patrick Henry Community College. They're a partner, and hopefully you'll hear about some of the programs that we're supporting. So thank you very much for that. More than 90 seconds.
So Julie Brown, Dr. Julie Brown is doing exceptional work for this region in trying to quantify what we're doing. We have a great story to tell, but too many times we don't pull it all together, aggregate it, and tell that story, and that's why I chose to pick on her. And where is Aaron? Aaron, you're around here somewhere. So Angela and I, Dr. Godwin and I convinced Aaron that this was a great primer to open up this conference to say this is what we're doing in this region. And you know what I took from that, not only is it inspirational, but it shows innovation and it shows what a next generation of worker can experience about it without getting too sappy on you about living, raising a family, and being able to have a career and stay here in Southern Virginia. So that's part of what I think why we're here tonight. And you know, you're not here to listen to a former member of the General Assembly yak for 15 minutes. But what I'm trying to say is I think we're all here because we all care about the future and we want to learn about how we can collaborate. And here's where I want to say that for the New College Institute to be successful, Patrick Henry Community College must be successful. And for Patrick Henry Community College to be successful, we must have our school systems from K through 12 being successful. Now, what do I mean by that? So about 11 or 12 months ago, I had a visit with a prospect in this community, and it was an international company. They were an aerospace manufacturer. And in a foreign tongue and in broken English, the executive from the foreign land asked me, the director of the new college, "So, Senator, how do you teach math in the middle school, particularly in the 7th grade?" And I look at Leanna, Dr. Blevins, my chief academic officer. I said, "Leanna, would you care to answer the question to the gentleman?" And that was one of those moments, we all have them in our life, when you go, wow, I have got to clean that answer up for the next time around. The trick answer to the pop quiz was, are you starting to teach math in the middle school so that when those students are in their juniors and senior years, will they have the opportunity to be calculus ready? Not that calculus is the common denominator or a numerator that all the students have to have, but what are we doing to prime the pump in STEM subject matter so that we can train the next generation? Because if we don't do it as a region, other regions throughout the country will do it, other countries throughout the globe will do it, and that's what we have to do to be competitive. Now think of the pyramid for just a moment. So that the new college offers classes to both high school students and to other students who are taught from a calculus perspective for engineering, maybe trigonometry for technology. And Patrick Henry has done a wonderful job for so long in trying to meet all of the demands of the employers. But you know, what we've done in the past isn't going to be good enough for the future. And if we don't change to meet the needs of what employers expect from us, we will not be successful because we must remain competitive in that educational process. And Glenn, I think that's what you were trying to talk to us about, the K-12 pipeline, so that the community colleges can be successful in our institutions of higher learning. So let me tell you just very quickly about, and it's not theory, it's practical application now. We finished up our first year of our Academy of Engineering and Technology. And for those of you that heard Senator Warner at the launch place last Friday talk about how important it is to train the next generation of workers, here's what I would say. In our first class, we had more female than male, and we had minority than others. And I would tell you that's not what we targeted for a population. So we have our governor's school students who are very bright and exceptionally able to meet the math requirements. And you have other math courses in K-12, but what about that other population that has just as much aptitude and ability to learn? If we do not provide the math courses around them, we are losing a segment of a population that will make us less competitive. And forget about us for a moment. Think about for them. They have an opportunity to earn a job. And they've got an opportunity to get a job in this community today and earn a wage that they can make a career out of. And I don't care how you measure any of us, if we try to leave it a little bit better than when we found it, and what I mean by that is giving somebody an opportunity to get up and go to work and have a career and raise a family, I would say that's a big check by anybody's initiative. Now, manufacturing will come back, but it will come back in a different fashion. There will not nearly be as many people working as there were before. And here I want to focus on the healthcare segment just for a moment. So the new college in Patrick Henry will provide students, and we will give them opportunities to train in telemedicine. And guess who our anchor partner is with that? Well, of course, our hospital. Skip's here tonight. And here, let me do this, and I promise you I can do this in 60 seconds. So we will place digital equipment in a patient's home to remotely monitor the patient so that the patient has a better outcome and avoid the unnecessary readmission to a hospital within 30 days. Now, Skip's board could spend 2 months on trying to figure out how much money the federal government will not reimburse that hospital for one patient who has to be readmitted within 30 days. That is uncompensated care, and it's care that takes up space in a hospital that otherwise could be used elsewhere. So why not use technology? But guess what? At the bottom of that equation is how do we train that person, the healthcare professional, whether you are a first responder or whether you're a medical doctor, on how you use that remote equipment to remotely monitor the patient. But you know what? It takes a lot of training and effort to do that. So while we all may be in the Kool-Aid in advanced manufacturing, let us not forget about the quality of life. And I dare say that between Martinsville Hospital, Memorial Hospital, and our school systems, think who are your top 2, 3, 4 employers in the localities. And that's what we have to focus on, is being responsive to the employer's needs, be able to meet those needs and move forward. So our legislative delegation is here, rascals all. And I would tell you, I look back at Frank Ruff when Angelin said that we just agreed to agree. But you know what? In my former life, maybe that wasn't necessarily the case when I was negotiating with other parts of the state so that we got our fair share of the watermelon, so to speak. But Frank, it's true. Patrick Henry and the new college, we just agreed to agree. Danny, I saw you roll your eyes just a little bit, but these guys would send me into a budget conference and expected me to come back with funding for the Rural Center. And I will tell you, we don't have time, none of us have time to argue, fuss, or fight about any turf. We must work together in a collaborative fashion. We must share faculty, we must share equipment, because we simply don't have, with limited resources, the ability to duplicate any of the above. So that's why I predict a very bright and robust future for Patrick Henry Community College and the New College Institute. So let me go down this path with you within 90 seconds. So we're building a new building. We'll have a new equipment set of $1.5 million. It'll be wonderful for the New College Institute's students. But what will be even more exciting is that Patrick Henry Community College students will have an opportunity to train on that same equipment, and there will be a stackable certificate. And let me promise you, there are few people I know any better than Dr. Godwin to put together the curriculum to make sure that that PH student is the absolutely best trained on that equipment. And more importantly than all of that, whatever we do collectively, it will be industry-led, it will be industry-driven, and it will have an industry focus. Because if we cannot meet those needs, we shouldn't be in business. And that's the pledge that we have made to this community, and that's the pledge that we hope that we are able to deliver year in, year out with our students. So let me say, and I'm about ready to come to closure before the Amen Choir stands to start singing me down, but I'm going to pick on Delegate Marshall for a moment. So look at the Tobacco Commission. So when we securitized, Frank, we ended up, I'm trying to think, about $1.2 billion of an endowment, say some 12 years ago. And as one of the original members, gosh, I'm only 53 years old, makes me feel old, but one of the sponsors of that legislation way back when, think of where we would be without the Tobacco Commission just for a moment. Just fillet it, take it out, what's left of what do you have left on the table. You know, you can look, you don't have to go far off this campus, much less anywhere else, to recognize the impact of what the Tobacco Commission has. Now think of this for a moment. I get my tenses correct. The Tobacco Commission was able to institutionalize projects. One of the biggest investments was in broadband, deployment of backbone and fiber to the premise in certain instances. We are now competitive. Technology companies can come here, but you know what's different and what's evolved, and it kind of cracks me up now, is we all talked about we want to be in the IT business. Well, who doesn't? That's cool. But go to RTI today and tell them that they can't do their SAP enterprises without high-speed internet and huge bandwidth, or take the most complex engineering schematic of any employer in this community, and with one push of the button be able to transmit huge amounts of data that otherwise you probably would have had to, 10 years ago, unscrew the hard drive, put it in a express mail box, and hope that it gets to the client within 2 days. Today, with push a button, we are able to do that, and that's one of the examples of the Tobacco Commission that I think will still pay dividends, not just on having the backbone and the canal of high-speed internet. But so Delegate Marshall has the chair of this committee called Special Projects. Who was the former chairman of that, Danny? It might have been you. It was me. So you know, I've kind of forgotten that. But the opportunity for us to have the advantage of a tobacco commission that still has great market power to make investments on a regional basis will take us many laps around the track that others cannot accomplish. And Danny, Delegate Marshall, we are happy to remind you of that often and look forward to that. Delegate Poindexter, we appreciate your service on House Appropriations Committee. I know that you and Senator Ruff being on Senate Finance, can bring home the bacon every February or March, depending on when you adjourn. Angela and I had to do that. She doesn't have to agree with me on that. It's her house. I promised to behave. But we thank you all so very much for your service and what it means. We're working very hard with the dollars and the authority that you give us to try to implement what the legislature and the governor ask us to do. So before I turn that into a revival, I know in the Army, for the 24 years I was in the Army, we trained to standard and not to time. And I was supposed to speak for 20 minutes, and I have not used all that up. So I would choose to close to say this and thank the West Piedmont Planning District for having the vision of putting this together. We need to have more of these, Aaron. We need to continue to talk. We need to continue to focus. And this isn't so much what we really should, it's not what we should be doing it. It's not that we need to think about how to do it. We're doing a lot of it. And you're going to see a lot of tangible results that come from it. So Dr. Godwin, I cannot thank you enough for being a partner in higher education. And, you know, I bet every one of you have had a chance to talk to her at least once. And when I met her, I said, gosh, I hope I can keep up with her. And I will tell you, she is such a tremendous asset to this community and to this college. You know, there's always, no matter what organization you go, well, gosh, you can't get her, what can you do? You can't make it without the former person. And when I leave, who knows who'll follow my shoes and what. But I'm going to tell you what, Dr. Godwin, I would hate to follow her into the shoes as president of Patrick Henry Community College, because she has blazed a trail and she knows exactly where she is going. And when she tells me to pay attention to something, you better believe, much like Dr. Julie Brown, Julie tells us to do something, Leanne and I pay very close attention. When Dr. Godwin calls and says we better pay extra close attention to something, you know, we just go to the whiteboard and we just start erasing and start writing again on what she tells us we ought to do. But Angela, you're a wonderful asset to this community. Patrick Henry, in its 50 years of celebration, coming up on the 51st year, I guess, this fall, you will set the stage for the next 50 years and the foundation where we go from there. So if it's permissible in your house, if you would allow me, please, ma'am, to introduce you. Dr. Godwin.
Yes, William and I have been accused of, between the two of us, sucking the air right out of a room. I'm glad we're talking about rural Virginia. I grew up on a peanut farm, and we lived in Plum Pass, Plum, rural So it's something near and dear to my heart. Delighted to be here at Patrick Henry Community College. I want to brag on a few folks. I really appreciate my delegates being here, Delegate Poindexter, Delegate Marshall, and I love Delegate Marshall. I love one of the things you say is that we have to create the skills and the abilities, but the want to. And I think that's a nice chart. We got to bring our students up to Richmond, and Delegate Poindexter and all the folks and Alex were so gracious, and we really, really appreciate it. Appreciate all our members of the General Assembly being on our campus, and those of I haven't met, I would love to do that. We just got some rock stars in this community, and I want to introduce you to a couple of folks so you'll know who they are. Our workforce coordinator, she is second to none. She really, really has a leadership role here in this community. Brunelle Thomas, stand up. Many of you know Brunelle. She works in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, just really a dynamic individual, and we've got a lot of aspirations for her and her leadership, and we appreciate it. Her dean is Rhonda Hodges, who's our Dean of Workforce Development and Continuing Education. Stand up, Rhonda. Rhonda's my right-hand person. And then I have some deans here, and the deans are really interesting folks, and that deans, I was a dean once upon a time. Deans stand with one foot in the faculty and one foot in the administration. And they get it from both sides. So last year we developed a new division, the STEM division for Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics, and really recruited a crackerjack here that hit the ground running. And Steve Branch here, our Dean of STEM. And where's my Dean for Applied Science? It's our Division of Professional Technologies. Am I getting it right? Healthcare, accelerated learning, and off-campus programs. That's right, very good. Jeff Fields, stand up, Jeff. And we had our board retreat this morning, a really wonderful group of folks here. You know, when we think about our rural communities, just want to highlight just a few things here. And one thing I want you to know is that our partnership with New College Institute and what we're trying to do in our community, as well as our many, many partners that are here. And Julie, we can't say enough about the partnership that you allowed us to be a part of, as well as the part of the Regional Alliance. I don't know if Lee is here or not tonight here or not. Is that the collective of all of us. My mother used to say, if all of us did everything we could do, we've still got plenty to do. And I think that's what we really realize in these partnerships. What wakes me up in the middle of the night is Johnny in a 2-bedroom ranch in a C- average. He's the kid that's right there on the cusp. And I think that when we look at the hope and the promise and the challenge that you saw in this video, I think that is a part of our responsibility to engage those students. Let me tell you about our students. We have a little over 3,000 students at this college. 88% of our students come from underserved, underrepresented populations. And what does that mean? That means they're first-generation students, they're Pell Grant recipients, or they're minority students. 88%. So when we get really fire in our belly on this subject, you need to understand it's because we know if we can move the needle, if we can make these things happen, all this that's been laid out as our challenges, we're talking about transformation. We're talking about way more than just getting an education and getting a training. We're talking about the transformation of a community and the transformation of lives. And that is a powerful, powerful mission. No pressure here of what we have before us. I think one of the things that's exciting to us, and I just want to highlight, is that we have to understand that we are really in the talent development business. And you be careful what you ask for. because you just may get it. And I think that we as academics in education, I spent the first part of my career purely in academic, and I was a professor and a dean and a community college president. And then I stepped over on what some would call the dark side, and I spent about 12 years in economic development and private business. And my bucket list was to come back to community college work because that's what I love the most, and I'm a product of a community college. But in that transformation of all of that, we have had a reality check, and it goes like this. Our courses and our degrees must be externally validated, and that is a new reality for us. And I'm going to tell you some of the ways that we're doing to accomplish these kinds of goals that have been put in front of you today. One is our career readiness certificate. Some of you were at that meeting earlier this week. Patrick Henry Community College, I'm very pleased to say, thanks to Rhonda's leadership, was in the very beginning of the Virginia Career Readiness Certificate program, looking at skills that could translate throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now we're moving to a national career readiness certificate. You should be just happy as you can be about that, because it means that what we understand about the skills and competencies of our students here can translate in any part of the country. It's an external validation that we're doing our job. And let's all be honest now. We all know that we took classes in which we were a little bit more diligent than others, right? Some of them we just slid under the radar screen. If every one of us in this room, I wish I could have talked Julie into letting us do this. We just pass out that career readiness certificate test and we just take it tonight.
I've got some in my purse.
All right, good. Because it is a real reality check of the skills and competencies that our folks need to fulfill the needs of our business and industry. And it's based on a Work Keys platform, and that's very, very important that we remember that this is an opportunity for us to validate. I'll tell you one of the things we're doing at Patrick Henry Community College. When I came here, I said we're going to inventory our people, our programs, our facilities, our equipment. We're going to turn over every rock. There's no sacred cows here. And in doing that, we've found many of our programs where there are third-party industry certifications. And our job now is to embed in all of our programs anywhere there's an industry or a third-party certification. Why? Because our students need that competitive advantage, and they deserve that competitive advantage. And that is one of the things where serving a huge population of underserved students, I believe we can make the most impact, the shortest amount of time with the resources that we have. So when you graduate for one of our programs, industrial electronics, today you can have the courses, you can have a degree, and you will walk out the door with your mechatronics certification. That means something to business and industry. IT, Cisco, whatever it may be, that we have to embed those certifications so that we can assure you employers that it's not just what we say has value, but we're giving our students a competitive advantage. I remember a time when internships, apprenticeships, co-op, I was a co-op student, that was icing on the cake. You did that if you needed extra money. You needed that if you had some extra time. You needed that to give you just a little bit of icing on the cake. Get out a new sheet of paper. It is a core requirement. We cannot continue to produce people to go in the workforce if they've not been in the workforce. This is a new reality check. And I think that one of the things you're going to see our programs doing, NCI and Patrick Henry, is building a bridge between educating and training folks and handing them off to our employers. We've got to build that bridge. And we may have not thought it was our business to do it, but it is our business to do it today. And I have to tell you, So for some folks and some of our students, based on their experiences, based on their background, we may have to hold their hand and walk them all the way and pass them off to their employer. And you know what? That is okay, number one, and that is our job, number two. And I think it's just a redefining what we are doing. When I think about the students and the employer, everybody's a student or potential student to me. That's where I live. We either signed you up or we're getting ready to. But when I think of those employers in the video, and I want you to begin to think of this yourself. There's a new kid in town. This kid is smart, brainy, intellectually sophisticated, and may have never even thought of himself or herself as a smart person. But they also have the ability to work with their hands. A few days ago, I was in an industry and visited one of the young men that's one of our students. In fact, he just graduated. He's got the mind of a engineer, and he's got the mechanical skills of a shade tree mechanic. And that's the new cat. That's what they're going to look like. And I think it's very important for us to recognize this. You have a tremendous opportunity. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have just a little bit of fire in your belly for this. And believe it's the right thing for us to promote career intelligence. We need you to talk the talk. When you see Senator Wampler and Angela Godwin coming down the road, you know what we're going to say before we say it. And you know what we're going to preach before we preach. And you know that we're going to pass the offering plate every once in a while. You know what we're going to say. But when you are business and industry leaders and you are organizational leaders, when you speak the language of what has been put before here, that is when communities and regions change. And because when you talk about it, your neighbors will talk about it. My granddaddy was a very interesting person. He went to the 2nd grade. Probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever known. I'm the only person in my family to ever graduate from college, from high school, much less college. My mother went back when I was a grown person. But he used to make, and he read the newspaper, taught himself how to read the newspaper. That was his really, really big thing. But one of the things that, when I was a little bitty kid, so started my fundraising career, he'd give me a quarter if I learned to recite something he wanted to recite. But he used to tell me, he would ask me the question of what makes an American? And my answer was to be, it's the last 4 letters, I can. We need a positive message in our region. It's all about attitude. Positive message. It's all about attitude. Most of us that have taught in the classroom, we have to believe in our students before they believe in themselves. And I believe our job is to believe in the future of this workforce before it believes in itself. And we need your help. We're so glad that you're here tonight. I know that Senator Wampler is entertaining you. Glenn, thank you for the passion that you have for rural Virginia. You know, if we can make it happen here, it changes lots of lives. It transforms what we do. We're passionate about what we do. This is our life's work. And we cannot do this without you. And you have to be a part of the conversation.